Everyone, trust you all are doing well. So what we're going to do in this one, we finished up our jobs. We did our exception. Now what I want to do is, before we continue, I just want you to update your jobs as well in your like part of the reply. Just make sure this is not is like by. You will get an error. As I remember from the previous one, I put this as is like by, and in our reply as well, in our thread as well, I made this is like by. Please just change that to be like by. Okay, this is the part that actually creates that like. Okay, so after that, all right, so we're all done. Let's quickly create our Livewire components. So a like thread and a LikeReply. So just open up your terminal. Right, so let's quickly create that. So PHP artisan make Livewire. Right, and the first one is going to be LikeReply, and the second one will be LikeThread. Okay, I'm not going to do it any order. I'm just going to do first come, first serve. Okay, so HTTP Livewire LikeReply. So this is the first one I'm going to work with. You know what? Let's work on the LikeReply, LikeThread first. Okay, I can change my mind. All right, so let's work on a LikeThread first. Let's go to this one right here. I'm just going to change the view to be like button. All right, so let's go to our thread and include our Livewire component. So that is under resources views. Okay, then you go to pages threads.show. All right, so we got our likes in there. Okay, so with the template, you will see we got the likes with the arrow icons. I just want to copy everything in between those two divs, cut it out, and go to our like thread. For now, let me just leave it as is. I will paste it in a second. Then let's add our Livewire component, like thread in there. And I'm going to pass in the thread. This one equal to the thread, because we need to know which thread are we dealing with. Okay. Right, so I've got my Livewire in there. So let's see if this renders. Right, so as you can see, we got that being displayed as like button right there. Okay, so we know it's working. Right, so let's go back. In our view, I'm just going to change this to be the button. All right, that hard icon and displaying the count right there. Okay, so let's quickly go back and refresh this. So as you can see, it's displaying nicely. All right, so now what I want to do now is I want to actually work on my Livewire component, the like thread right here, and to be actually update the job and do the jobs as well. All right, so let's quickly do that. All right, so the first thing in our like thread, what we want to do is we want to bring in use dispatch jobs like that. All right, because this one will be responsible for actually dispatching sync or dispatch now, which is deprecated. We don't use that anymore, so it will be dispatch sync. All right, so we're going to create a public variable. Just remember, in Livewire, if you use private variable, it cannot be accessed in the front end by JavaScript. All right, which Livewire use to actually do its magic. All right, so just make sure you don't create a private variable. This needs to be a public thread. Okay, and then we're going to create a mount method. Public function. Let me just do this. All right, the mount works like the construct method in PHP, more or less. All right, and this is going to be the thread and like this. Okay, just make sure we import that at the top, otherwise we're going to get an error, and you guys know how to do this by now. Let me bring in this thread equals to thread. Okay, so then we just set it right there. All right, now the next thing is we're going to create a toggle like button. So let's just do that. So public function, and this one is going to be toggle like this. All right. Now, the thing that we want to do. All right, so we're going to create an if statement. If the thread is liked by the user, okay, then we're going to do a dispatch to unlike the comment. So if the user clicks on it, if the if the thread is not liked by the user, we're going to dispatch another job to like basically the thread. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So let's create an if statement. So if this thread, okay, remember the one right there, we're just going to pass through. So if this thread is liked by, just remember, like I said, just make sure I import it imported. So if this thread is liked by the authenticated user, just make sure you need to import this at the top. That's why I'm kind of just concerned to make sure everything is imported. So the thread, app models public thread, good. Right, I'm supposed to go to the thread right there. I will check, and we will check in a second what is happening right there. Right, so the next thing that we're going to do is if this thread is liked by the authenticated user, all right, then what we're going to do is we're going to do an unlike. So basically this dispatch sync, okay. As you can see, the dispatch now is deprecated. Please don't use it. So dispatch sync, and we're just going to create a new unlike thread job. Okay. Then we're going to pass in this thread, pass in the authenticated user. Okay. Remember, in our job right here, we need two parameters. We need the thread and we need the user. Okay. So when we dispatch the job, we pass which thread it is and we pass in which user it is. Just make sure I didn't spell anything wrong right here. So this is the thread. Okay, so that's all good. This still worries me a bit. Okay, so now the next part that we want to do is we're going to do an else statement. So if the user didn't like it, have not already liked it, then it dispatch this job. So this dispatch sync. Then we're going to create a new like thread job. Okay, and we're going to pass in the two parameters. There's going to be this dot thread and obviously the authenticated user. Okay, so that's basically what we're going to do. All right, only reason I'm doing this is just so that you guys can easily read it. Okay, so the spacing right there. Otherwise, I would just keep them close together. Right. So basically, what this will either return a true or false. Okay, so if it says true, then if it is liked by the user, do this. If it's not, if this returns false, it will do this right there. Okay. So just see that. All right, so the next thing is we created a public variable thread. So let's go to our thread model right here in our show method. You see we pass that thread variable right here. Okay. All right, so what we want to do now is if we click this button, this button is not going to have an anchor ref, so I'm just going to delete that. Now this one, I'm going to add the wire click event on. All right, and that click is going to call on that toggle like that. Let me just do this. Okay, it's going to call on that toggle like that. All right, and this count, we can actually do this now. We can put in a count, and we're going to say this thread, and we can just call in the likes. Right, just remember the likes. If we go to our thread model, see it of course has likes. We call on this method right here, which call on the likes relation, which check the count and things like that. Okay, so in our like thread, in our view, let's see and cross our fingers and hopefully everything works well. As you can see, it shows 0 for us right there. Okay, so which is good because it's showing the count. The next part is I want this to be clickable. So what I want to do is I want to change this to be cursor pointer, just to be a pointer as soon as we hover our mouse over this. Now the problem that I'm thinking is If the person is not logged in, I don't want this button to be clickable. I just want to show the icon and the count. It's the only thing that I want to do. I don't want to display basically the button to be clickable. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to create an if statement. Okay, so if the authenticated user is a guest, okay, so this just comes with Laravel, then I want to, let me just move this up there. Okay, so, and this one, just going to create an else statement, else. So I'm just going to remove that, and I'm just going to make this a span, like that. That's all I'm going to do. All right, so this will not be clickable, so that cursor pointer will go away. All right, so basically, if the user is a guest, do this. If it's not a guest, do this. All right, and it doesn't have to be an anchor tag. We can actually just make it a button like that. All right, so now what will happen is this one will only display the count if we're a guest. I'm just going to let's put above this guest, like this. Okay, so that we know that the person is logged in, not logged in. Okay, so let's go quickly to the browser and let's refresh. Or guest, I misspelled it. Right, so as you can see, we got our guest right there. Okay, so let's go back. So just make sure I didn't put the parentheses at the end. Just make sure you make it a method. All right, so everything is working. Now what I want to do is, as soon as I click this button, so I must just log in quickly. So what will happen now is if I click this button, it needs to, in our thread model, it needs to call on this method, and this method will do the necessary job depending on the thread. All right, so I'm just going to put a die and dump, and I just say liked, like this. All right, before we do this, I just want to die and dump the like there. All right, so let's press this little heart icon and see if it works. As you can see, it shows liked. All right, so we know it's calling the right method right there. Okay, so now what I want to do, I want to delete this. Okay, so now hopefully it will actually send it to the relevant things right there, dispatch the job. All right, so let's press the heart, and this should change to a 1. Okay, so we press it. As you can see, now we got a 1. So there's a like on it. So if I press again, it's supposed to unlike. As you can see, it unlikes it to a 0. All right, so very, very nice. I don't like this outline. That's just a styling thing. I will just change that quickly. Right, so that is working. So we got our threads set up. Now the next part is what we will do is we will do our like replies. So we finish with our like a thread. Now the next thing is we just need to do the same thing with like a reply. So we're going to copy and paste a lot. So yes, thank you guys for watching. And if you like the video, please give it a like. If you don't like the video, please give it a dislike. Positive or negative feedback are always appreciated. And please consider subscribing to the channel and reach my goal of 1,000 subs. Thank you and goodbye. Cheers. Adios.